Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Now, up next, we have My Digital World segment, talking crypto, NFTs, if we get to them, and the digital process with cryptocurrency experts Shahal Khan and Gary Fowler. Now, what are cryptocurrency and blockchain? Well, let's simplify. Cryptocurrency is a digital asset. In simple terms, crypto is like a token that can be exchanged for real money and can be used to buy actual products. Now, more than 10,000 different cryptocurrencies are traded publicly, and they continue to proliferate, raising money through something called initial coin offering, or ICOs. Now, the total value of all cryptocurrencies as of July 16th of this year was more than 1.3 trillion, which was down from April high of 2.2 trillion. Now, in simple terms, crypto is a form of payment that can be exchanged online for goods and services. Now, many companies have issued their own currency, often called tokens, and these can be traded specifically for the good or service that the company provides. Think of them as you would arcade tokens or casino chips. You'll need to exchange real currency for the cryptocurrency to access the good or service. All right, stay with me. Now let's chat blockchain. It's a little bit more complicated. Blockchain is a specific type of database. It differs from a typical database in the way it stores information. Blockchain stores data in blocks that are then chained together. As new data comes in, it's entered into a fresh block. Once the block is filled with data, it is chained onto the previous block, which makes the data chained together in chronological order. You following? Now, there's different types of information that can be stored on a blockchain, but the most common use so far has been as a ledger for transactions. Are you following me? Decentralized blockchains are immutable. And what does that mean? It means that the data entered is irreversible. For Bitcoin, this means that transactions are permanently recorded and viewable to basically anyone. In Bitcoin's case, blockchain is used in a decentralized way that no single person or group has control. Rather, all the users collectively retain control. This is a key takeaway. Now, here to help me make sense of all of this is Shahal Khan and Gary Fowler. Gary is president, CEO, and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios. He's an award-winning serial entrepreneur and investor, and he was on the original management team of Click Software that was recently sold to Salesforce for $1.35 billion. Gary was recently named one of the top 10 global AI executives and is an international speaker and author of over 140 articles. Pretty impressive. Now you have Shahal. His career as an investor and an entrepreneur and social venture capital spans over 22 years with investments encompassing telecoms, real estate, energy, natural resources, and of course, technology. He is the founder of Burkan World, and all projects of Burkan are designed to give back to society. Shahal was born in NYC and educated at American University and Johns Hopkins University in Washington, D.C., and his family background can be traced all the way back to the Mughal nobility in the South Asian region. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Great to be here. Thanks, Sen.
Absolutely. Gary, it's such an honor to have you. Shahal, always a pleasure. Gary, I'm going to just have you frame this for us now. What are the main reasons why cryptocurrency has become so popular, specifically in today's day and age?
Well, there's the little backdrop on it. Think about what's happened over the last 18 months. Our lives have fundamentally changed then with this digital transformation and COVID. We've had to look at things differently. We've had to do things differently. So when we look at cryptocurrencies, McKinsey said that 93% of the companies worldwide over the next 10 years would have to go through the digital transformation. But as individuals, we've had to do a lot more quickly. And at the same time, we've had to maintain commerce. So it's about speeding up opportunities and really leveling the playing field. So part of the reason is, the fees can be low, especially if you're not using some of the exchanges. Once you understand crypto, today the masses, if you ask people 5 years ago about Bitcoin, they would say, well, listen, nefarious people were using it, et cetera, Ethereum, or the other digital currencies. But today, you talk about mothers, you talk about, my daughter that's 26 years old. I mean, she talks about Bitcoin and Ethereum like it's just, a way of life. So it's changed. Cryptocurrencies aren't associated with governments for the most part, although some have established their cryptocurrencies. There's a potential for profit. Look at Bitcoin over the last year. Yes, it's fluctuated a bit, and Ethereum, but guess what? It's up. It's getting easier to use. Part of when you ever have a new technology, it's ease of use, Ed. Ease of use. Now we can get in, you can use a Coinbase account and very, very easily transfer money, not just Coinbase. Security, right, is important.
And Shahal, this question is going to be for you. Let's piggyback off security. We're in a world today where everybody is afraid of their information and their data being stolen. And of course, cryptocurrency is a gray area. A lot of people are not sure if this is safe or even legal. Shahal, what do you say to the average individual who is poo-pooing, so to speak, cryptocurrency? Because there's a lot of them out there.
Thank you, Zen. So I think a lot of this has to do with ownership of the data and people feeling secure that where their data is kept secure. First and foremost, they have to be really aware that the platforms they use have to be well-known and regulated platforms. And I've always felt that, people look at where they can profit first. And they tend to look offshore, and they tend to look at a lot of these exchanges that aren't regulated, and that's where a lot of the fraud happens. And if you are, looking to get into crypto, if you're going to invest in crypto, you've got to be aware that this is still an early stage of crypto. There's a lot of excitement around it. There are a lot of exchanges out there, and you have to be very careful where you're getting your digital wallets, where you're putting your money. What exchange are you using? We're sort of, fortunate here in the United States that the exchanges that are here still have to adhere to a lot of the laws in the U.S. And, they should really look at utilizing well-known and established players as do their research. They can't just jump into it. This is where they, tend to have the biggest risks in terms of security.
And Shahal, the security cryptocurrencies are safe because they can't be duplicated, basically. And these virtual currencies can solve real world problems, aiming for a decentralized economy. Reliance on financial institutions will decrease, and thus trading can become fully digital with no inflation. That is your motto behind really pushing this theory of the power coming back to the people. Can you tell us in a nutshell, based on what I just said, in terms of having crypto empower us versus being controlled by the banks and the systems? What do you say to this?
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it, as an economist, really is that I'm not very much like a lot of the other sort of digital or alternative finance promoters that say that we should do away with our current system of Western capitalism and or the other systems worldwide. The Chinese systems, they're all going to go to zero. The way that I look at it is that there has to be a redistribution of income due to the fact that a normal person today, an average person that works in a corporation, I've done some analysis, literally 95% of their time is taken by the company that they work for. They're really compensated, if you look at their lifetime, for 5% of their actual time and what they've created. So that is a very old model that was created in the 16th century through corporations, through shareholding corporations, where the shareholders take most of the work of the people to the top. And this is what we see in our economic markets today. We see this in our capital markets today, and it's gone beyond just corporations. It's gone to the actual stock exchanges, and it's actually gone as well as to the government side, where you're having the government having a tremendous amount of debt, and that debt is also coming to the top in terms of its effect on the people, which shows up as inflation. So how do we get away from that? I've looked very simply at some of the models, economic models of income, and look at trends today in terms of how people are earning their income, and where people are actually spending a lot of their time where they're not earning an income. And that leads to social media, leads to gaming, where people are spending a lot of their time. They're being literally mined, for their time by corporations, and they're not able to monetize that for themselves. And so we've been working on a stealth mode on a concept called Tempus, which in Latin means time, where hopefully we're going to allow people to monetize the time they spend on interactions in social media, as well as gamification platforms, and now be able to earn back from that. So it's a flip of the Silicon Valley model to a degree.
Power to the people. I love that. Tempest, keep that thought. Gary, with all the money printing during the pandemic, this means that now more capital is needed to be deployed, and people are looking for places to park their cash, and the appetite for large-scale investments has never been bigger, and a lot of that likely found its way into Bitcoin mining operations in places outside of China. What do you say when you look at the drama with how China is trying to literally kind of destroy before something has even kind of been deployed? They're trying to suppress this crypto. What do you say to that, and why do you think China is trying to do that in under 2 minutes? And then we have to cut to a commercial break.
Yeah. I mean, well, China's been doing that for some time, right? So look at communism. So it's not the first time. But, if you look at it, people that are resistant end up being thrown back into the Stone Ages. The world, this digital transformation, I said, intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities aren't. The idea is to create opportunities evenly around the world. So if China's suppressing or anybody else, they need to be aware. They need to look in the mirror, because the population at some point in time won't put up with it. We are moving forward. We need to do things a lot faster. We need to do things more securely, and we need to do things that are equitable. These digital currencies give us the opportunity to do that, and being able to base on, how much your data is worth to you personally, instead of a Google out there, you own your data. The world's going to shift. This 4.0 world's coming upon us, and the digital transformation here to make our lives better, more efficient, and much more effective.
Wow. You are just a plethora of knowledge. You are like the book I've always wanted with all the questions. Between the two of you, I'm in the right hands here. We're going to cut to a commercial break, and we will be right back with cryptocurrency experts Shahal Khan and Gary Fowler. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back, beautiful people. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. I am your host, Zen Sams. Now, in my digital world, we are talking to Shahal Khan and Gary Fowler, and we had just finished talking about the cryptocurrency bit and where China is headed with this new with these new headliners that they keep making. Now, well before China decided to kick out all of its Bitcoin miners, they were already leaving in drones, and new data from Cambridge University shows they were likely headed right here to the United States. The US has fast become the new darling of the Bitcoin mining world. It's the second biggest mining destination on the planet, accounting for nearly 17% of all the world's Bitcoin miners as of this April 2021. That's a 151% increase from September of last year. Shahal, this is an incredible piece of information. We love that this is on the rise here in the US. What do you have in mind for Tempus, specifically for our local markets, and what can you tell the world once you introduce Tempus?
Wow, Zen, I mean, I'm going to try to keep this as succinct as possible, but my theory on Bitcoin is that Bitcoin has always been a financial weapon that is pointed at our markets. We don't technically know who started it. We know that theoretically a lot of its technology is old Bell Labs technology. The first people that really plowed into it are China and Russia. And then, we had a certain amount of people that are notable in the United States that I think made big mistakes, like Elon Musk and Michael Saylor, just literally promoting it without knowing who owns it. It's not transparent. There's no way to regulate it. And once we start putting it on our balance sheets of our corporate public companies, if it's fooled around with, and people that own it, 60% of people that own it, we don't even know who they are. They could literally destroy and wipe out balance sheets of our companies on our public markets if they're holding it on their balance sheets as a store of value. So my view is that China did whatever it needed to do to get it going, and now they're throwing it over to us, and for us to use our energy to be able to mine it, and it's just going to help whoever the people that are holding on to the majority of it, which nobody knows who they are. But my theoretical and intelligence sources point right to the Chinese government and some of the other people there. Now, I try to be non-political as much as possible, because I try to look at the world as much as I can as one. without borders. We're looking for a future where people are actually, working and interacting without borders. And the way to do that is really to go to the people all over the world that need income and find a transparent way for them to earn money and store that money transparently and safely. And this is what I've tried to do in terms of my theoretical creation of this Tempest, where it'll be completely transparent. We'll know who earned it. We'll know geographically where they earned it, and it'll be put on systems where the governments will have a view to it, so they can tax it. So it's also good for societies in terms of the governments earning income as well as people. And that's the way we're looking at a currency, global currency of the future. And I hope this model will lead a lot of other people to create similar currencies that will actually unify people rather than be a untransparent threat, possibly.
So Tempest is going to pave the way. We definitely need more transparency, and I think with someone like yourself heading something on this level, of course, you do your research, you have the best of the best around you, and you definitely know what you're talking about. And I think that people are looking to trust again, and I think that they've lost a lot of faith in our system. So this is definitely a new way of having people involved and compensated. So I can't wait to see what that unfolds. Now, this question is for Gary. Gary, cryptocurrencies in general, people will argue if they're a good investment or a bad investment, and it's a very broad question because we know cryptocurrencies may go up in value, but many investors see them as mere speculations, not real investments, and a lot of people are at war over this. What's your take?
Well, so on one side of it, we've got this incredible opportunity in the cryptocurrencies to be able to dramatically change our lives. And as I said, make them more efficient, effective, and more interesting. But at the same time, we don't want to get into the Dutch tulip phenomenon. I mean, some of these coins that are coming out that don't have the integrated approach, as Shahal has mentioned, are challenges. And what we don't want to do is get into that Dutch tulip phenomenon where we end up investing in something that's not really there. So to your listeners that are out there, be cautious. Make sure that you've got a sustainable, an interesting coin that's got that's backed and has credibility. Don't go out and do a whim du jour approach where you're going to go out and invest in something that may or may not be successful. If you do that, it's like throwing a dart against the board and closing your eyes. I wouldn't suggest it. So what we got to do is, that's exactly what you said, Zen, is what needs to come, an integrated approach. The Germans have a phrase, Gestalt, the sum of the parts equal the whole. Nobody's really mastered taking all these ancillary parts, loyalty, different aspects of our lives, our data, and really tokenizing to make our lives better. And it's got to happen because we're inundated. We are in a state of infobesity. We need to be able to use these kind of tools like a Tempest, like cryptocurrencies, like tokenizations to be able to make our lives easier.
It's funny that you said that, to make our lives easier. Here we are introducing cryptocurrency for the average person. This seems very complicated, and yet when you look at it on the flip side, from visionaries like yourself, like Shahal, you see this as a great opportunity, and you also see it as a way for people to be able to take control back into their hands. Now, Bitcoin and other cryptos have been anything but stable through much of their history. For example, while Bitcoin traded at close to 20,000 in December of back in 2017, its value then dropped to as low as 3,200 a year later. And by December 2020, it was trading at record levels again. So this price volatility creates a conundrum. And if Bitcoin is to be worth a lot more in the future, then people are less likely to spend and circulate them today, making them making them less viable as a currency, so to speak. Why spend a Bitcoin when it could be worth 3 times the value next year? Shahal, Gary, anyone?
Yeah, I mean, the situation is, from my perspective, so you got to look at it. It depends on what kind of resilience you have in and of yourself. Some people get nervous and, they don't look at it as a long-term investment strategy. This is not for the weak, this market. But again, these more integrated approaches are going to stabilize. From my perspective, it's going to be a more stable environment. And that's really what we got to strive for, because these ups and downs and ins and outs that we have today happen whenever there's a technology boom. And I've been involved in a number of them, e-commerce, et cetera. What happens is skeptics comes out, people don't really want to do it. Then all of a sudden people, online credit card purchases in the late 90s, early 2000. Now everybody does it. It's normal. But what's going to happen is tokenization is going to take over, and our lives, as I said, will fundamentally change. It'll be a lot more secure.
Well, there you have it. I always love talking to Gary. He makes everything so simple. Shahal, you have found an incredible resource on your side. There's no one else that you should be launching Tempest with, because you guys are an incredible team. And I thank you for having you on A Moment of Zen. It was such a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Zen. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And next time we're going to be diving into another My Digital World segment with Shahal Khan and Gary Fowler. You are listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WR, the voice of New York. I'm your host, Zen Sams. We'll be right back after this.